with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel is written to us by Matthew. This is how the birth of Jesus came about. His mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be with child through the Holy Spirit. Joseph, her husband, who was a righteous man, was unwilling to expose her to shame. And so he decided to divorce her quietly. Such was his intention, when behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not hesitate to take Mary, your wife, into your home. For it is through the Holy Spirit that this child has been conceived. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, because he will save his people. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet, Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke, he did as the angel of the Lord had commanded him, and took his wife into his home. This is the gospel of the Lord. Perhaps the major reason that many of the gospel stories do not have the full social or personal impact they could is because, of course, we don't fully understand, and how could we, the social situation in which they were initially written, or the understandings of Judaism, which, of course, all of the characters are Jews. They're not Catholics, and they're living 2,000 years ago. And that becomes rather obvious in this particular story, which is only found in Matthew's Gospel. Luke's Gospel emphasizes Mary's role. Matthew's emphasizes Joseph. And here we have him discovering. Now, at this point, notice he has no knowledge of what we call the Annunciation. This has happened to Mary. There's no indication she has told him about it. She can barely, I'm sure, believe it herself. So this ordinary carpenter, probably largely uneducated Jewish man, most people estimate he was 19 or 20. She was 14 or 15. People grew up much quicker and were engaged much earlier, usually by their parents. They had little say in the matter. So these two are engaged, betrothed, as they put it here. And he finds out, of course, that she was found to be with child. And what does he do? And this is, I think, a very important part of the message here. He's quite willing to break his own Jewish law to protect this woman from disgrace. He has no reason to understand, nor could his mind possibly understand, that this child was born of the Holy Spirit. So he would naturally assume, well, maybe she did something wrong, maybe she made a mistake, I don't get it, I don't understand it, but I'm not going to humiliate this woman. This is extraordinary. He puts human respect, human dignity, his love for Mary ahead of his own Jewish commandments. Because the commandment is very clear. A woman who is found to be with child without a husband is to be stoned to death. They were pretty strict in those days. So, stoned to death. He will not do that. And it's only after the fact that he finds out in a dream. Now, even that, if you were raised like the Catholic I was raised to be, we were told not to believe in dreams. Those were dangerous. They might be from the devil. Well, here we have Joseph, as is Joseph in the Old Testament, both believers in their dreams. Now, what's that saying? Maybe it doesn't mean just the kind of things you and I have while we're asleep, but it means that deeper level of intuitive listening, where often prayer happens, where often we can hear God at a deeper level. So he trusts this deeper hearing, this intuitive knowledge of God, which is called a dream, over what he would have read in the books. Do you realize, I'm sure you do, I hope you do, what a subversive message this is? None of us, none of you were given that kind of freedom. None of you were given that kind of permission. In fact, we didn't even teach you how to go to that deeper place and trust what you heard, as it were, in your dreams. If you came to most priests, at least the priests I grew up with, and you said, I heard in a dream, he'd say, you're crazy. You follow the laws of the church. We're not bothering with your silly dreams, huh? Well, we're contradicting San Jose, right? St. Joseph. And again, I point out, the word actually used that we've always translated carpenter, which is fine, it just literally means a construction worker, a builder. So any of you who work in construction, you've got a good patron. But it means he was a man who worked with his hands. He didn't get lost in his head, like sometimes some of us overeducated people do. He knew reality, he read what was right in front of him, and maybe in that simplicity, he also learned how to go deep and to hear the deepest messages of his heart. Now, brothers and sisters, I realize that in talking to you that way, it's dangerous. Because if you're a selfish person, if you haven't been healed of your basic egocentricity, you'll misuse that. And you'll hear a dream told me. Well, maybe, but maybe not. So I'm preaching that to you, giving you, as it were, that permission with the trust that you are a mature Christian, that you are a mature human being, that you have a life of prayer, that you understand what it means to love God and to love your neighbor. If even most of those are in place, then I think I'm doing the right thing by telling you to trust your dreams, to trust the deepest level of your hearing. And you know what? It might just be the voice of God, as it was for Joseph. So don't let any priest tell you that you're being dangerous or selfish. Those are the risks, those are the demands that we all have to take to follow the always elusive and half-hidden will of God. But I hope at that level of faith, you're a little more prepared for the great feast we're going to celebrate a week from tonight.